As a result of a genetic mutation, this dog gained superpowers and decided to follow in the footsteps of Superman. We will learn what happens next from the recap of the film Underdog. This adorable beagle was recruited into the police force when he was just a puppy. From a young age, he was trained to help and protect people. During a routine police meeting, he notices something suspicious in one of the drawers, and the officers immediately begin an evacuation. A SWAT team in hazmat suits storms the building and opens a dangerous box. Inside, they find a large piece of meat. The dog is laughed at not only by the police officers, but also by the other dogs. Because of this incident, the beagle is fired from the police force and sent to an animal shelter. The other residents of the shelter immediately tell our hero that a terrible thing happens here at night. In the evening, a dwarf man with a crazy look in his eyes shows up at the shelter. This is Simon Bar Sinister, a genius but completely mad scientist. Together with his henchman Cad, he goes down to the basement where the dogs are kept. It turns out that he conducts experiments on the dogs, trying to create a breed with superpowers. Bar Sinister asks Cad to bring him a new dog. The man chooses our beagle. The scientist grabs a syringe filled with a bright blue liquid and promises that it will hurt. The dog sneezes right in the villain's face and breaks free from his tormentor. As they try to catch him, Cad falls onto a control panel. The beagle runs around at lightning speed, smashing everything in his path. A cabinet filled with various test tubes falls over him. The test tubes shatter, and at that moment, the beagle's body begins to transform. Bar Sinister realizes that the serum has worked for the dog. At that moment, a fire breaks out in the laboratory. The beagle manages to escape. Firefighters and the police arrive at the scene, and now they have to figure out what happened here. The beagle spends the night outside being hungry and lonely. A few vicious stray dogs latch onto him, claiming it's their territory. Our hero tries to escape from the aggressive canines and gets run over by a car. It turns out that the driver is a guard from the very shelter where our beagle was taken. Fortunately, the dog is alright and even licks the man's boots. Then the guard decides to take him home. So the dog ends up in the family of Dan Unger and becomes the pet of his son Jack. He is given the nickname Shoeshine because he always licks something. Dan leaves for work and asks his son to keep an eye out on the dog. Shoeshine immediately falls asleep and dreams about the crazy Bar Sinister. Upon waking up, he realizes that he is very hungry and sets off in search of food. The beagle finds a can and manages to open it. Uh-oh! A mailman arrives at the house. Shoeshine barks at him and the window shatters from the bark. Wow! The dog wants to get a ball from under the sofa and flips the sofa. Seems like he's become incredibly strong. Jack returns home and sees what his new pet has done. The dog says that it was an accident, and the boy realizes he can understand him. Both are clearly shocked by the discovery. Jack steps out to compose himself, and Shoeshine runs after him. In the park, the lad runs into a girl named Molly, who he really likes. She also has a pet, a beautiful dog named Polly. Shoeshine realizes that he has fallen in love. The dogs meet and exchange compliments, but unfortunately, it seems that Polly only sees him as a friend. Soon, Shoeshine discovers his new superpower, which is unbelievably high speed. He can also dig quickly and hear conversations from a great distance. Among the voices, he distinctly hears someone cry for help. It's Molly, she's in trouble. Shoeshine rushes to save the girl and her dog. He runs so fast that at one point he takes off into the air. That's another superpower. Shoeshine flies through the city streets trying to avoid hitting any cars and crashes into a huge skyscraper. The dog flies through the entire building and finds himself back on the street. He finally locates Polly and neutralizes her attackers. He even saves the camera that they were trying to steal from the girl. Shoeshine escapes before Polly has a chance to notice him. Cad arrives at Jack's house and says that he has lost his beagle. Jack lies, saying that he doesn't have any dog, and that his blind grandfather is making noise on the second floor. In the evening, Jack's father returns home. Jack asks Shoeshine to quickly clean up while he tries to stall his father. Unfortunately, Dan notices all the destruction and threatens to take the dog back to the shelter. Jack pleads with his father not to do it. The man gives Shoeshine another chance. The crazy bar sinister opens his new laboratory in the sewer right under the dog shelter. It smells terrible, but at least no one will disturb him while he carries out his evil deed. Jack and Shoeshine become true friends. While Shoeshine sees a hot dog kiosk on the street, he is horrified. Do people really eat dogs? Well, Jack explains that there is no dog meat in those sausages. The lad shows Shoeshine his school. The dog notices a cat that teases and calls him names. He takes the fluffy insolent furball to the tree. Jack begins to train Shoeshine to sit, lie down, roll over, and speak. But these are elementary commands. The dog masters all of them in 4 seconds. And Jack gives him a collar with his nickname. At home, Shoeshine tries to train Jack. The lad tells the dog that his father is a former police officer. He quit his job after his wife's death. The news reports a robbery at a jewelry store. The criminals have taken hostages. Jack asks Shoeshine to intervene and catch the robbers. At first, the dog refuses, but for the sake of his owner, he decides to perform another feat. It turns out that the mastermind behind this daring robbery was Mr. Bar Sinister. Shoeshine rushes straight into the jewelry store, deals with the robbers, and saves the people. A real superhero needs a superhero costume, and Jack helps his pet choose the best option. Now he's not just a dog, but rather the underdog. Shoeshine begins his noble work of protecting the city from criminals. With his superpowers, it's a piece of cake. He quickly becomes a true urban legend. He is talked about in the news, written about in the newspaper, and invited to talk shows. One day, he even saves the same annoying cat that used to bully him from a fire. Bar Sinister attempts to recreate his serum, but the experiments on other dogs yield no results. The scientist realizes that he needs to obtain a DNA sample from Shoeshine to continue his work. Cad is used as bait. Underdog saves an old woman falling out of a window, but it turns out to be Cad in disguise. However, the man clearly underestimated Shoeshine's superpowers. The underdog drags him across the whole city like a toy and then runs away. Bar Sinister goes into rage, but his henchmen hand the scientist the collar of our protagonist. People on the street notice that Shoeshine looks very much like the underdog. To allay their suspicions, Jax puts a collar on his pet. Polly and those same nasty stray dogs that previously wanted to catch him see him like that. They laugh at him and tell Polly that she doesn't need a weakling like him. In the evening, Polly calls Underdog and soon he comes to her. Together, they fly over the night city and then Shoeshine treats his friend to dinner. While Jack and Shoeshine are walking outside, Mr. Bar Sinister and Cad break into their house. They kidnap Dan and demand that he calls his dog. At first, the man refuses, but they threaten him with an attack from 3 German shepherds, and he has no choice but to comply. Shoeshine hears his owner's cry and rushes to help him with Jack. They get the scientist to release his owner. He agrees to give him his DNA and lose his superpowers. Shoeshine once again becomes an ordinary dog. Bar Sinister uses the serum on 3 German shepherds, and they become super dogs. Together with Cad and his toothy pets, he heads to the city hall. There they take the mayor hostage and demand a lot of money, a personal laboratory, and complete freedom of action. Dan, Jack, and Shoeshine also free themselves from the ropes and rush to the city hall. Cat climbs the roof of the building and installs a special bomb that is supposed to spray a special substance and turn all the residents of the city into Bar Sinister's slaves. Molly also sneaks into the city hall and climbs the roof. She sees what Cat is doing, but she doesn't have time to do anything about it because the thug ties her up and leaves her on the roof next to the bomb. Shoeshine realizes that he no longer has any superpowers, but he is a police dog and can sense a bomb, so he rushes into the building to save the hostages. Shoeshine accidentally bumps into Bar Sinister and knocks the test tube out of his hand. The miracle serum spills onto him again, and our hero turns back into the underdog. Shoeshine has to engage in a fight with 3 German shepherds, who also have superpowers. Seeing that the dogs are struggling, Bar Sinister drinks his wonderful serum himself, gaining superpowers as well. He grabs a sword from one of the statues and attacks Shoeshine, then uses a huge shield like a frisbee. Shoeshine is pursued by the German shepherds. Shoeshine manages to convince the aggressive dogs that they don't need to obey the mad scientist, and turns them against Bar Sinister. The German shepherds immediately attack their owner. Bar Sinister manages to activate the mechanism and triggers the bomb on the roof. The explosion will happen in 2 minutes. Shoeshine returns to Jack and asks him for his superhero costume. Dan also breaks into the city hall and deals with Bar Sinister. Underdog flies to the roof, frees Polly and Molly, grabs the bomb and buries it underground. It explodes so deep that it doesn't harm anyone. Trying to fly away from the explosion, Shoeshine ends up in an open space and flies past one of the astronauts. It seems he doesn't even need air to breathe. Shoeshine returns to Earth and loses his consciousness, but soon he regains it. The people are ecstatic. The villain ends up in prison. Dan returns to duty with the police. Polly still has no idea that the cowardly beagle living next door and the legendary underdog are the same person. One day, Shoeshine runs into those same nasty street dogs on the street and barks at them so loudly that the leader's fur flies off of him. And this was a revenge for all their wrongs. Shoeshine continues to be the defender of the city, because there is a real superhero living in each dog.